Now, you spoke to the grand jury investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Were there other key moments during that period that didn't make it into this special counsel's filing?
Well, I think that there's obviously a lot of focus on the day of January 6th, and I think that this was obviously an effort over several weeks. And I think that, from my personal perspective, believe that once the Electoral College had acted on December 14th, that much of this would sort of dissipate. And I think when it didn't, it became clear that the focus would be on the vice president's actions on January 6th. And so those last few weeks were certainly, more intense in deliberations between the president's office and the vice president's office. But I think there's some pieces that probably aren't told because they were probably considered to be at this point protected because of the Supreme Court ruling of official activities. In other words, I think there's probably a lot of Mark Meadows' testimony that is yet to be unearthed from this, whereas I think you're looking at not wanting to trip over that potential disqualification. So much of what's released in this filing is things that are considered to be campaign activities. And again, I think that the president probably heard his case when he dismissed his own White House counsel from many of these conversations because the advice that Cipollone and Pat Philbin were giving were not consistent with where he wanted to go. So by relying specifically on outside counsel, I think it's harder to argue it was official activity when you especially, ask that your official counsel not be present for these conversations.
Yeah, now how do you see it? I mean, do you see that these conversations that you were a part of there by witnessing the then vice president speaking to the president on that day, do you see those, do you remember those conversations as being conversations between the executive office branch, or is it more conversations of a candidate speaking on a political way to his, running mate?
Well, Jose, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so I confess that. I think it's a gray area, to be honest, because I think that the vice president's role in presiding over that ceremony